Is ZANU PF deliberately blocking VP Chiwenga's presence? This is a thought in many people's minds. We have heard about the Chiwenga faction and ED Mnangagwa's faction, and what played out in the past week between Chinoma Chakaere and Deputy Minister Paradza. At the end of this video, you will make a decision whether it is right for ZANU PF to talk about the succession plan now that they are coming out from the 2023 elections or not. We want to look at a number of questions before we can ascertain that VP Chiwenga should be elevated to the position of an immediate successor of ED Mnangagwa and thwart completely the 2030 agenda. So sit back, relax, let us dive into it. First, was VP Chiwenga obvious successor to ED Mnangagwa? What about Kembo Mohade? How does he feel about this? What about Opam Chinguri? Chris Mutsvangwa?
To help us answer this question, we want to look at the history of vice president in ZANU PF from 1976 up to the present moment. From 1976, ZANU PF had a vice president in the form of Simon Mzenda. After the Unity Accord in 1987, there was Vice President Joshua Nkomo, who became the second vice president of the country. In 1999, after Joshua Nkomo died, he was replaced by Joseph Musika, who were left with Vice President Mzenda, who also died in 2003. After the death of Vice President Mzenda, he was replaced in 2004 by Joyce Mujoro. Joseph Musika died in 2009 and was replaced by John Landa Nkomo. So here's an overview. With Vice President Nkomo, he died leaving Mugabe on the throne in 1999. Vice President Mzenda died in 2003, leaving Mugabe on the throne. Joseph Musika died in 2009, leaving Mugabe on the throne. President Mujuru was forced or expelled out of the party in 2014, leaving Mugabe on the job. John Landa Nkomo also died in 2013, leaving Mugabe on the throne. So out of the 5 vice presidents inside ZANU PF during the tenure of Robert Mugabe, 4 of them died on the job, 1 was expelled. So this is how ZANU PF has dealt with their vice presidents in the past. There has never been a smooth transition of power from the incumbent to the vice president. So the issue of the vice president taking over is not a clear cut. It has never happened. This is a new thing to ZANU PF. It's not an obvious case that VP Chiwenga is an immediate successor. Let us analyze the words of Chris Mutsvangwa. To analyze the words of Chris Mutsvangwa at the recent press conference, he used the words, "They want to turn a performing president into a lame duck because they are scared he will perform even more." These are his words verbatim. Lame duck. What does the word lame duck mean? You know, Chris Mutsvangwa loves to use big words, but let us unpack the term lame duck and see what it means. A lame duck refers to an elected official, typically a president or a member of Congress, who is serving out the remainder of their term or having been defeated in an election or having announced their intention not to seek re-election. Like our president, who said he is a constitutionalist and he will not seek re-election in 2028. The characteristics of a lame duck is a limited power or a transition period.
We'll come back to the words of Chris Mutsvangwa, lame duck, and see some of the lame ducks around Southern Africa. But first, let us put ourselves in Chris Mutsvangwa's shoe. Before Operation Restore Legacy in 2017, there were a number of events that led to this coup. There were a number of cadres inside ZANU PF that were disgruntled by Mugabe's tactics, and they were fired by Robert Mugabe. Among them was Chris Mutsvangwa, Douglas Mahia, Victor Matemadanda. These were the people that were calling for the resignation of Robert Mugabe and said that he had failed to run the party and was letting the G40 faction control him. At the heart of Operation Restore Legacy in 2017, Chris Mutsvangwa was one of the chief negotiators. You can see from this video when he was celebrating the fact that they had indeed ousted Robert Mugabe, and he was eventually going to resign.
Ambassador, this man, we are the team. We are the team. We are the team. We are the team. Zimbabwe! Monica Mnangagwa is back in power.
Now let us look at why ZANU PF is afraid of talking about the succession battle now. Let's go into Southern Africa. First, South Africa and the story of Thabo Mbeki and Jacob Zuma. In 2007, at the Polokwane elective conference of the ANC, Thabo Mbeki was defeated by Jacob Zuma after trying to seek for re-election into the third term of ANC. After the defeat of Thabo Mbeki, the structures within ANC became hostile towards Mbeki, the lame duck, and putting their attention on backing Jacob Zuma, one of the factions which was led by the ANC Youth League President Julius Malema, called for the resignation of Thabo Mbeki, the lame duck. And this is the challenging period for any president. What we saw in the year 2008 was Thabo Mbeki's resignation was because of the fact that he was literally the lame duck, like what Chris Mutsvangwa said. We also saw the same in 2017, after the defeat of Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, who was believed to be a proxy of Jacob Zuma. After Cyril Ramaphosa's win, Zuma became the second lame duck of the ANC. He was no longer the president of the party, and the hostility among the ANC cadres for him to resign was the subject of the day. We saw that the number of ANC meetings that was held at St. George Hotel in Pretoria, Irene, where people and journalists were thronging to hear when Jacob Zuma was going to resign. At the end, we saw Jacob Zuma resign on the 14th of February 2018. In other words, he was another lame duck who couldn't finish his presidency. We also see this in Botswana. Ian Khama, after his resignation and giving president's baton stick to Mokwetsi Masisi as his vice president, caused him to be persecuted, and in the end, Ian Khama fled the country. So you see, this issue of transition from the president to the vice president has always had its misgivings around SADC. That's what makes ZANU PF scared of walking the same road. So that begs the question, is ZANU PF blocking VP Chiwenga's presidency? The answer is probably yes, and they are rightfully so. They need to be cautious because they say in Shona, Kugaranaka uona zewamo. Like what happened in South Africa, what happened in Botswana might have sent a strong warning to ZANU PF.
This tells you that if ZANU PF wants this succession battle, probably it's not the right decision for them to have vice president taking over, because he might end up persecuting the outgoing president or his former supporters. What do you make of this decision by ZANU PF? Some think that it is unfair for Vice President Chiwenga to be treated or rewarded this way because he literally risked his life for ED Mnangagwa in 2017. What do you think VP Chiwenga will do if he has been given the opportunity to rule? Will he not go after those that were seeking to block him and saying, 2030, Mnangagwa wachipo? What actions do you think he should take as General Bay? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And thank you so much for subscribing and liking this video.